Welcome to her Life Unscripted podcast, inspiring burnt-out women and stretched-thin mamas to embrace the unscriptedness of life. Brought to you by Anna Osborne. Hello, ladies, and welcome to her Life Unscripted episode 11. It is a beautiful day out today. We're having a little bit of nice breeze, and I'm actually working in my home office today, and I can hear the wind chime outside, and so it's really nice to be able to hear those wind chimes. It's always probably one of my more favorite sounds in the world is the sound of a wind chime. So I'm excited to be here with you today, and I'm just overjoyed to be sharing the interview from today's guest, the lovely Gina Ballard. I have known Gina for probably around 30 years. We met each other in grade school and grew up and went to the same church together, and actually were college roommates when I was in grad school. And so we have just had the pleasure of knowing each other for such an incredibly long time, and also being able to just kind of go through life together. I'm really, really excited to be able to introduce you guys to her. She's amazing. She is also, on top of being amazing, she is a feng shui practitioner and an angel intuitive. And, I think that there is so much of her journey that you will be able to relate to because she is just so real. And she has this ability to, she knew her truth was to really help others live an improved life and didn't really know how to or what to call it. And so throughout her lifetime of being able to not only overcome personal challenges in the area of health and career and relationships, she's just dedicated her life to helping other people do the same. And she's just really committed to kind of working in that place of life, love, and integrity. And you guys are just you're going to love her. She's so sincere and fun and just magical. And I cannot wait for you guys to get to meet her. Enjoy the interview. Well, I am so excited to be here with the lovely Gina Ballard today. We've known each other a very, very long time. We met in elementary school and have remained in each other's lives since then. So I am just overjoyed to have her on the show today. And before we started recording, we were both commenting on how we have known each other for more years than we can count, and yet we haven't aged at all. We are still as youthful and as vibrant as we were the day we met in second grade. So I am just really excited to have Gina here on the show, and you guys are just going to fall in love with her like I have fallen in love with her, and I'm just excited to introduce her to all of you guys.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. That was so sweet. I'm going to start crying.
Oh yeah, P.S. Crying is totally allowed on this podcast. A couple episodes ago, I was recording and I had to keep nodding her on so I could pull myself together as we're continuing recording, because I was definitely, some tears were flowing. So yes, there is permission always, tears allowed. So I was able to give the audience, an introduction into kind of, who you are, G, as as a professional and those sorts of things. So they kind of know that. But can you share a little bit about this amazing work that you do of just, kind of a short nutshell? And then we're going to dive into a little bit because you just have so many gifts and I just cannot wait to introduce you to everybody.
Thank you. Yeah, the work that I do, it's interesting. I was just inspired this last weekend. I'm not sure if you saw that. I put a little quote on my Instagram, and I basically was explaining that the work that I do is not what I do, it's who I am. And it's been a long process for me. It's been an unfolding from the time that I was really young. I was sensitive to spirit. I was sensitive to the angelic realm. I just never really knew what it was. So that's the majority of work that I do. It is who I am, and that's an angel communicator. So I communicate with angels on the daily, just chatting. I ask questions, they give me answers. I do it with and for people. It was something that I was really scared to come out of the spiritual closet about. I hid behind the world of feng shui for many years. I started studying feng shui when I was out of college. 23 was the first year. I was on cruise ships and I was taking this little program, through mail. I was really hiding behind it because feng shui was a creative outlet to explore the angelic realm more. So then, fast forward several years later, I have this great knowledge base of feng shui, which is amazing, and I use it, but I also combine that with messaging that I'm really getting from the angelic realm now that it's kind of safe to do. And I just use both of those modalities not only to do what I do and to help people, but just it is who I am on the daily. I mean, there was this cute little lady that was sitting across from me at the nail salon the other day. And that's what inspired the quote this past weekend. But she said, she had asked, "What do you do?" That's like such a get to know you question. And I explained to her. And then the questions came at me. They came coming, and she was like, so what do you do in your free time? And I just kind of looked at her baffled, and I'm like, no, that's not how this works for me. What I do is who I am. This infuses my whole life. It infuses everything in my home, in my work. It's all one. So yeah, so that's kind of been insight. So anything from angel cards are a part of my daily routine, and like saying bye to my husband in the morning. It's like we choose that together and open up a little inspirational quote. But it's the same thing that I do with clients every day.
So beautiful. I think that thinking about this alignment between who we are personally and professionally, and that the more that we do step into our identity of who we are, that can radiate through us, like you said. So it's not just what I do when I'm working, it's how I live my life. And I know, being trained as a psychotherapist, there is this wall that we're supposed to be behind in terms of who we are as a therapist versus, who we are as a human being. And I think that for me, and, you and I were just talking about this. I've been doing therapy for almost 13 years now. That's what sparked our conversation about age. But that it's never fit for me in terms of this differentiation between who I am as a therapist and who I am as a person. But it's definitely something within the therapy culture that the more seen I am, or the more transparent I am, the more at risk I am for judgment of how it's supposed to be. And I think that really does speak to the more that we become in line with who we are, just kind of in our soul, that the more that we are inspired to do the work that we're called to do, no matter how we define it. And so, like you said, coming out of the closet as, with this intuitive and the connection with the angels and those sorts of things, like that's a powerful journey to go on. And I'd love for you to kind of share a little bit about what it was like, not only keeping that hidden, but also as you came into the light, and aligned that, infused it into all aspects of really who you are.
Yeah, for sure. So it started for me, really it was I had great friends growing up. I mean, we were super friends. We're still super friends, but in college growing up, like I just was always surrounded with really good friends. But even then, because this actually stemmed with my mom. My mom was in a really bad car accident when she was younger, about 16. She lost her really good girlfriend. She actually had a crossing over experience where she was pronounced dead on the table. Went there, came back, and then when she came back, she had this capability to see and understand when people were going to cross, and that very much scared her and made her nervous. So by the time I was, ready to kind of explore the intuitive stuff that was happening around me, which is really just like seeing colors, seeing spirit, feeling things that I didn't think that I should be able to feel, knowing things that I didn't understand why I know that, or how this was coming to me, and trusting it, and then understanding like, oh my gosh, that was real. How did I know that? So knowing things that I didn't know how I knew. The first place I started was astrology. So I asked my mom, hey, can you give me, my birthday and the time of birth? And she was like, no, I know what you're doing. That is not safe. That's not okay. Plus, I was really Catholic. I was raised super Catholic. So then I would go and sit in church, and it was like, no, anything outside of Jesus, that's not okay. So everywhere in my life, I was hearing, that's not okay. That's not okay. Meanwhile, I had a lot of stuff. This is like a whole story in itself, but just, I guess you could say sexually, that went on for me as a child that was really inappropriate, that I really held within my whole system. So that, in conjunction with this, it's like my whole spirit was just like, what, like, who are you? Who are you? Right. Mm-hmm. And not knowing who I am. And my body then started to like totally break down. I was in my first marriage, which was, very sad for both of us, just not a good marriage. We're great now. Like we're friends now. We've had peace now. But looking back, it's like, my gosh, I had all of these things, not knowing I was safe, thinking that what I was seeing, knowing, hearing was not the truth, that it was demonic, that it was not okay. By the time I was 27, I had met an angel intuitive, and she really helped me to understand what it was that I was hearing, seeing, feeling, knowing, and helped me to develop the relationship with the angelic realm. That helped me entirely. And then it was a Catholic priest that eventually set my mind free, that I sat in front of, and I said, I got to tell you, this is what I see. And I've seen it forever. And I know that your belief is that it's not okay, because I had a former priest that was like, no, no, you don't see that. That's not okay. And he looked at me and he said, Gina, of course, what you're seeing is okay. When I do the Eucharist, there's thousands of angels on the altar. And there was something about that conversation that lit me. It just sparked me. And I was like, this is okay. It is who I am. And I started to embrace who I am. And I allowed that to come out more and more and more. And I stopped hiding so much behind feng shui and telling people little by little, not making it a big deal, but just letting people in on me, the real me. And I was, had some health challenges throughout my 20s. And as I came into greater marriage with who I was, those health things fell away. Everything just started to go in the flow. And then I started to follow my fear and understanding how that could really help me. So it was this whole journey of really having to accept myself, no matter how many people told me it was not okay, and it wasn't real, and it wasn't safe, and that there were things that were demonic, and like certain friends that didn't understand it and laughed at it, which whatever. The priest, I mean, my gosh. So it's like when it's your mom and these people that you love and your friends and your church, and it's everybody saying no, and teachers, by the way. I've had so many teachers fall away. All try to say that it wasn't right, and no, that's not right, this is right, or you shouldn't do that, this is right, or you're never going to find love, don't do that. Because when we're working in the esoteric world, you have a lot of intuitive people, and it's like they think they know what's better than you do. So my own intuition and gifts were tested time and time again. So to be able to really allow who I am, which, by the way, there's this whole, it's fascinating, the whole thing that goes behind I am. Like, we really need to be cognizant of that. But for so long, my I am was, I am scared. I am not right. I am demonic. I am not accepted. So it was just this whole suppression. And I used things like alcohol and sex and, all of these things that were just never going to fill any void. But I was hoping that it would. Yeah. I was hoping that it just would. And then I just finally stepped into my light and I embraced it. And so now it's like, no, it's not what I do. It is who I am. I am an angel intuitive. I am a feng shui practitioner. I am in my power. I am now a wife. I am a stepmom. It's like all of these things. It's just one channel. It's one channel.
Such a powerful answer. And I think that hearing it is that we look all these other places to get permission to be ourselves. And when we get answers of, no, that's not right. No, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. Or, especially messages of you're wrong or you're demonic or there's something wrong with you, that it's such an amazing thing when we step back and realize, oh my God, like I'm asking everybody else to give me permission to be me rather than honoring and giving myself permission to be me. Like that's just such a powerful journey to go through. And also the awareness that you have, which it's only, as we go through it, we've got the awareness looking backwards, but to be able to say like, I was looking for everybody else to honor myself when I wasn't honoring these gifts that I have. And just so powerful to be able to see that through that lens.
Yeah, and that is a big part of my work. That's a big part of why I do what I do. It's not only to show up for these kids that are really sensitive, that don't have a safe place. That's a big part of what I do. But it's also to guide people to unleash their own magic. Because when you break the rules and you stop listening to everybody else, the magic is able to come. The magic is able to happen and help you to create this life. But you gotta stop listening to everybody else. And there's, my mom, as hard as that was, like I had to, I was like, no, I'm not going to not do this astrology thing. I'm not going to not do this. The priest, then I had like teachers. I had a Swami in India, the very first angel intuitive that I love. I mean, she is, I have so much love and respect for her in my heart, and I honor her, but we don't connect because there was this whole thing around, when I manifested relationship and she didn't think it was the right move. And she was very strongly about that's not the right move. And I was very strongly about it is. And I lost her too. So it's like, it almost seems like, just every few years I lose a teacher, and that's fine. I accept it because I know the minute that they say you're not ready or no, or that's not okay. If my juice inside me, if I'm getting that hell yes, if I'm getting that sensational delight around something, I know it is right for me. So break all the rules. Like so I am like the biggest rule breaker, especially with things with feng shui. It's like there's all these rules around feng shui and it's an ancient art and I love it. But I will be the first to tell someone, look, if it doesn't feel good to you, it's not good for you. If it doesn't feel good, what are you doing? Like that's not, that was my whole life up until I was probably 33, really. And I'm 36, so it's like it hasn't been, it's like I've been doing this work for a long time, but I finally realized, like, no, I need to break all the rules and I need to, like, listen to my heart because that's where the magic happens.
Just being able to honor that piece. And so thinking about the people that you work with, right? If you've stepped into your power, you've stepped into really trusting that juice, right? Those, like you said, the hell yes moments. What are some of the things that tend to be the lines of energy that you follow, especially when working with women? I mean, you talk so much about giving ourselves permission and trusting that if it doesn't feel right, really honoring that. What are the calls or the requests that you get from women and the support that they're needing in the work that you do?
So there's a couple of areas that I'll, generally speaking, that people will find me. Either one, they are looking to connect further with angels. That's one thing. So they find me because of that. And that's something that I really am keen to. Like, I'm very aware of how to connect with angels, the angelic signs. I wrote this article that was on Elephant Journal and it went viral. And so oftentimes people will find me through that. And they want development. They want to learn more and more how to listen to their own inner guidance. And it starts with them. You are your own best teacher. So it's really just about me helping these women and men, surprisingly, to get more in touch with their higher self, with their inner being, and how to listen. A lot of people with life purpose. I'll work with, that's right now, especially I'm working with a lot of people on giving themselves permission to be who they are, to leave what they're doing in the safety zone if they really feel called to do more, to find their purpose. That's a big thing. I do get a lot of inquiries around money and prosperity and abundance. It seems that's what everybody wants, especially with feng shui. It's like, well, how can I get that? And money, if you're familiar with the chakra system, which is your I am presence, right? It's like the chakras really do make up your I am presence within your body. Yeah, so let's just explain that really quick because it is good to understand. So the very first cell that was ever born, so you have your heart that was the first organ that was born, and then your very first cell is right in the center, your soul star cell. And from that unfolds these energy centers that kind of line up in front of your spine, if you will. Those energy centers or chakras. So in America, we say chakra. It's chakra. And in your body, they're 1 through 7. So it's from your tailbone to the top of your head. Then you have all these other minor chakras. So like in your hands or, just ever feet, you have all these other minor ones. But your main ones are from your tailbone to the top of your head. They continue. So those are 1 through 7. They continue 8, 9, 10 out and above your head into the universe that connects you to your higher being, eventually to source. And that's where source energy is. It's how we are literally all one body. That channel, which the very first chakra at your tailbone is where money lives, and safety and security and stability. So that's why I say money is a really great spiritual teacher. But that whole chakra system that creates your I am presence, it literally, I am, which Wayne Dyer has a great meditation called Wishes Fulfilled. I am wishes fulfilled. And he explains this beautifully. But it literally matches the sound of the Om, which eventually creates a circle, which matches I am, which matches God said, let there be light. So it matches the beginning of all that you are. And it literally entails all that you are, all that I am. And it's these energy centers that create your energetic makeup. It's also how we feel. So if we feel sad or anxious or the inability to create, or we feel scared because of money, we're outputting that all the way up that energy center out to all that is. And we are going to then be a vibrational match for all that is. So money, yes, it's a thing, but it's actually non-existent. It's just an energy, and it's an energy that lives within your root chakra, which is your first chakra. So oftentimes, if you can just change, actually all the time, if you can change your relationship with getting into the sweet spot of just really loving everything and being in appreciation for everything, to that space where we've all reached, maybe not as often as we'd like, but where it's like we're so grateful and so in appreciation mode, we could just cry because we literally have a full heart. That in turn can switch your finances. I mean, I know that that sounds crazy, but you're all one channel. So that I am present. So it's like being really mindful of, so people that come to me for money, it's like, okay, you want to have a better relationship with money. Are you telling money that you don't have enough of it? Are you telling it that you're broke? Are you saying, I am frustrated? I am broke. I am, think about all the things, the conversation you're having with money, and change the relationship around it. Because I wouldn't want to go to your house if you're telling me that you don't have enough of me. Or if I'm making you broke, I would want to steer clear of you. I'd be like, that's fine. I'm going to leave you to be. So that's another thing. People will oftentimes, they will find me because of abundance. They want to shift their relationship and prosperity energy centers. And really the work is really just to live more and more in the sweet spot and be more receptive to all that is good and all that you really are and your truth. So, so it's like people will find me thinking that they want one thing and it's never that thing. It's always something different.
Yeah, I can definitely see that
It's
piece
always
of,
good.
like you said, especially when it comes to abundance and money. I know that, when you and I have spoken, it's talking about that when you're looking for abundance and you've defined it as money, you can often miss all these other ways that you're abundant. And so, like you said, money is just energy. We want it to be so much more. And man, I was actually just went out the other night with a girlfriend. She's a therapist, and we were talking about the two things that are the most difficult that people have such issues talking about, especially in therapy, and I think in many aspects of life, is sex and money. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they just are like, it's so important. It's such an energy source, but man, we don't really want to talk about it.
I love
Yes,
that. I'm like,
absolutely.
let's
And that's
talk
why
about it all
people
day.
stop asking us out, because they're like, don't come to my dinner party. You just want to talk about money and sex. We're like, but it's like the energy source. But one thing, one book I read, Denise Duffield Thomas, and she was talking about that the universe is like this Labrador retriever that's like super eager, trying to seek out what it is that, that you want. And so it's like, oh, you're going to throw that ball. Let me go find the ball and bring it back. Right. And so thinking about that, what you're talking about, we're using the example money, but it could be anything, is that when you're putting the energy out of deprivation or fear, you keep getting it back tenfold, because the universe, as this Labrador retriever, is going, oh, fear, you're scared of something? Let me get you more of that. Because that's the energy that you're, putting out there. And like you said, I'm not going to come over to your house if you're telling me there's no room for me, and it's these ways that I feel like we take something so abstract like the universe and make it into these very concrete principles that people go, oh, I can grab a hold of that, rather than thinking it's something that's too, woo-woo, the words people use of like, no, this is actually something that I practice in my daily life, and that we can define it however we want, but it really is happening all around us.
Yeah. And part of, I don't advertise myself as a medium, but it does happen for me from time to time in connections. I'll get loved ones crossed over, come in. And I had to laugh a few years ago. My grandma, actually, she came in, and one of the things that she told me was I prayed wrong. And I didn't really understand that at the time. But I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't really know what that means, but I'm just going to let this sit. And I realized a few months later is what she meant is because she would sit there. It doesn't matter if you're in a pew in church. It doesn't matter when or where you think you're choosing to pray. It's always a prayer. We're in a constant state of prayer. So what she was saying was, she would like go in the pew and she'd get on her knees and it was like, please help me with, and please fix this. But if you're in that constant state of I need fixing or give me, or then that's what that's what you're drawing in. That's what you're asking for. That's what you're being a vibrational match for. Right. So it's like that. I finally understood what she meant by that. And I prayed wrong. What she really just meant is I just needed to be happy. How about that? Like, how about we just enjoy life? That would, fix so many things. Play and have fun. And instead of being in this space of even like trying to shift your beliefs or just do it. Like, whatever it is, like bring joy into your home, paint a wall, do things that make you happy, shift things that you like them, and get on a swing. And it's like, be playful, be youthful, and just bring more fun. And that shifts all of that I am presence in your energy centers inside. And it doesn't have to be hard work. It just really doesn't. It can be super easy, and it doesn't have to be where you're like sitting cross-legged in a hand mudra and saying a mantra. Like, it doesn't have to be like that either. I think people oftentimes, it's like, oh, it's too much work to go to yoga every day and meditate every day. And I don't know about you, but that's not how my life looks. And I'm doing okay. It's like I'm finally in it. Or even when I was in my 20s and thinking, that teacher, I need a teacher. And then that teacher would always disappoint me. And then the teacher would go away. Well, that was my belief. So it kept happening. So then another teacher would come in and that teacher would disappoint me and they would go away. Then another teacher would come. Well, how about just being your own teacher? Right? So it's like, that's what I'm empowering more people to do, is be their own teacher. And just shift the whole belief pattern so that we can have a new cycle.
To be able to shift that over into being able to really honor ourselves as our own teacher. And I think the playfulness is something that's so important. I recorded a podcast I think it was like a week or so ago, about this, this hustler mentality. And especially as an entrepreneur and a business owner, there is this, you got to get your hustle on and, no matter what. And, but the podcast was in the context of, hustling for our self-worth. And how it's such an energy exchange as we put that out there, that we've got to always find that, our meaning is defined by what we do, and giving that power to everybody else to define our value. And that it just becomes this, like you said, this cycle, this just toxic cycle of allowing everybody else around us to have so much more power. And I love that, you talked about playfulness. And I know that's something that, some really amazing work that you're doing right now.
Because everybody was saying that it has to be hard, and I don't want to feel it, and I'll come back to you later. It doesn't, it's hard, and I don't want to go through the BS, and it doesn't have to be hard. It is playful. So I say play is promoting lasting alterations for you. It has nothing to do with hard work. Why would anybody want to work hard or to feel the ick or to feel, and promoting lasting alterations for you. And it can be playful. Change can be playful. It doesn't have to hurt. And you don't have to recreate the feeling. I mean, I guess you can do that if you want. But why would you want to do that? I don't know. It's, and that was for me, it was like when I really had some forgiveness work to do in my childhood. And even as much as I love and appreciate, and I chose my mom, we had a lot of things that I had to forgive there. And, and it was, for years, I put myself through like, oh, I have to feel it and I have to go in it and I have, and the crying and the tears. And then it was like, why am I doing this? It could be really playful. And then it was. And then it's just done. It's like, that's just something that I'm really a firm believer in, is it can be your own. It could be what feels good to you. And it can be fun. It doesn't have to be this hard lesson.
So I'm going to have you share a little bit more about that, because, with my vision of Her Life Unscripted is that it's recognizing that life has gone off script for all of us. And, it's our adherence to how it was supposed to be or how it should have been, that when it shifts and life actually happens, that it's the letting go and the grieving process of what we thought it should be. And I think that, so many of my audience that have reached out and just been so courageous to share their voices, it's not so much the the gory details of what happened when life went off script, because those stories are, they're tragic and they're messy, and sometimes they're not tragic, but they're still messy, all those sorts of things. But that coming out the other side and being able to explore, how did it change how we loved or how we defined ourselves, or how did it make us grow? Like, that's such a huge part of this collective voice. And talking about play, in the way that you just described it, what are some of the ways that, thinking of the audience, that we can that you can kind of encourage them or give them some just some words about what that looks like to come through the other side and know that we can heal um, from experiences that we never, signed on for, but we can heal, and it doesn't have to be torturous in that healing. It can be a lightening, or a moving to a place of greater grace or greater brightness.
So I'm just going to tell this short story with this because I think it really applies and it's a good example of how this worked in my life. When I was married the first time, I decided that it didn't work. At the end, I decided that it didn't work because I was at a doctor's appointment, and it's like where I really drew. I think this was your wedding. No, it was Leslie's wedding. It was our other girlfriend's wedding. Anyway, I drew the line in the sand and I was like, no more. This is not okay. And I went to a doctor, and I actually had an STD test done, and I tested positive for an STD. I tested positive for chlamydia, which broke my heart. And you can imagine, as you're married. So my mind first went to, he cheated. This is not okay. And I left. I didn't say anything. I was in my despair. I was miserable. I was very sad, and I just left. I took everything and I just left him. And we never really had a conversation about it, which was the odd thing. It was like I was so much in my own misery and so much in my own story. And I just felt the pain, and I was just in it for several years, actually. And fast forward, it was like 4 or 5 years later, we reconnected, like at random. It was very angelic communication, how we ended up sort of reconnecting. It was through a creative project, which was so interesting and odd and perfect. It's just divinity, divine perfection. And he had asked me if he could come up. See, I was living in Napa at the time. He asked me if he could come up to Napa and go over some things in this creative project that I needed help with. And that was very weird for me because we hadn't connected. I was like, oh, the last time I saw you, I mean, we were not in a good place. It was a very ugly divorce, very sad for both of us. So he did. He came up, and one thing leads to the next. And we got to talking, and I realized, and I did some research with my doctor, which you would have thought I would have done at that time, but I didn't. Did some research with my doctor because he swore up and down that he never cheated on me. And I was convinced otherwise. That's why I left him. No, I left you because you cheated on me and you gave me an STD. And so I left. He was very convinced that he never cheated. He convinced me that he never cheated. And I, at that point, just really needed an answer with it. So I contacted the doctor, found out that you could actually be a carrier for this STD and not actually pass it on for years. And he may not know. So I found out actually that why I left my first marriage was not real. It was just a story. Oh my gosh, talk about healing. I felt stupid and humbled. And I mean, it was just kind of a messy, sticky thing. And it's very interesting because that day that he came to Napa where I was living, we sat down and we started to create, and we started to share creative energy and art and play. That was playfulness. And in that moment of lightheartedness and good food and discussion and play, it went. Like that whole story that had taken me through 4 years of, just disgust and hatred and anger and all of these feelings that then snowballed into health things and more things, just went. I mean, it literally just lifted. And that was the first moment that I realized, wow, this doesn't have to be hard. And he left there that night, and it was like I had this whole different perspective. And of course it helped to know that that he didn't cheat or that he didn't. But I mean, it was at that point, it was almost would have been better if it was, because then I just felt stupid. It was like, oh my gosh, I left you and you didn't even know why. It was like, oh my gosh. But it was through those moments of creativity and play that there was this really different connection. And that was my first experience with it. And I realized, you know what, this does not have to be hard. Sure, there's been other instances in my life that it is more difficult than that. But now what I do is I will start with holding in my heart space somebody that I really, really, really love and sending them light and appreciation and love and gratitude and holding. Then I go to somebody that maybe I don't really know. Then I go to somebody that I have a really big problem with. And there's a few of those in my life. They're really okay. No, there's probably one, and that's what happens when you marry into a family when things are not. But then I'll go to that place where I hold that other person in that light and love, and it helps. It really, and I do it every day. I do it every single day, and it starts every single day for me with the feeling of play. And I really go back to that time that I was playing and creating and being in artwork and being in creativity, and just the truth of all we have is now. And in that now, if you could just bring in lightheartedness and the sweet spot and more love and appreciation, all of that other stuff can fall away because you can choose to feel lighter, literally to bring in the light, right? It's not like we have a dark light and a flashlight. It's like just choose to shine the light at any one time. And literally to be, I'm not kidding, like going on a swing or being outside or playing with puppies or going and being with children or anything that's going to raise your vibration, do. Why not do, or to draw or to paint or to be, it's like, it doesn't have to be a thought out process. I do love the Ho'oponopono, which is it's a Hawaiian tradition for forgiveness, and I love it. It's sacred. It does help, and I'll refer people to that from time and time again. But my truth is that when I'm upset, all I have to do is go to a park. And I know that sounds so stupid, but that's all I have to do is to go to a park, play, sit in the trees, just talk to my angels. That's another thing that I do. I give it to them because why on earth would I want to do this myself if I could give it to them? And for people that are religious, angels are not religious. Angels just means messenger. And I do believe in God and I'll pray to God, but angels are closer to our vibration. So I give it to them through deep breath. And then I just continue to create and play and be in enjoyment because that is a choice. It is a choice point. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've hit rock bottoms and it doesn't matter. You can always remind yourself that it's a choice point. It's a choice point. So I don't know if that helps or if that's kind of what you were looking for in answering that. But yeah, it's like, how about just bringing in a choice of play and enjoyment and laughter, even if it's just a stupid comedy. It's just one thing that will shift your vibration, and maybe it won't do it once in an hour, but if you keep at it in 24 hours, you're going to feel so much better, and it's that feeling that's outputting the energy into the world.
Because I think that so often, especially when things are happening outside of our control, we forget that we can find choices in amongst what we do with it, and I think that there's such a delicate balance in terms of finding the choice versus blaming ourselves, right? That when we find the choice in amongst the tragedy or the heartbreak or whatever it is, even, the obstacle, when we find the choice in amongst it of what do I choose to do for myself? How do I choose to treat others? And what are the ways that I find connection to that playful spirit, to be able to find a choice, to find things to smile about, to laugh about. And so I don't think any of it sounds stupid. I think that it talks about, this power that we have within us to choose despite previous times or times within our story where choices were made for us, or choices were made that we never consented or agreed to, that we can still have choice about how we show up, and that is the true power. That's that light of, this is how I'm going to show up, irregardless of all the other choices that happen that wasn't the way that I didn't consent to that. I didn't say yes to that thing happening, but man, I can choose how I'm going to treat other people and how I'm going to treat myself, most importantly.
And that's so important. And I think also giving thanks for, because when you come to that space where these things happen and life does happen, and we are human. So, in being human, we have what I always call the itty bitty shitty committee up in your head that's like talking to you, that's like, oh, that's not right. But the reality of it is that you're being directed to go in a different way. So, if something doesn't work out how you thought it should, or to have an expectation, with expectations will always set us up for failure, always, right? It's like, because we're telling, the best that could happen, and it's like, no, let the universe deliver, because there's always something better. You want this or something better. So that place where it doesn't work out and you do feel in despair, you're just being pointed to something better. So it's being in appreciation of that, and just allowing and surrendering to, I know, even though this may absolutely suck, I know that there has to be something better. If you were to have asked my 26-year-old self when I was like crying in despair, thinking that my husband cheated on me, but now I look at my life and I'm like, oh man, I mean, I have two stepkids to share life with that I didn't have to go through a moment of pain in birth or labor, and they're amazing in their own way. I learned from them so much. I have a husband that I would have never imagined manifesting. I would have never imagined living where I live. Yeah, but I just allowed, and I surrendered, and I kept following uncovering every stone and following every intuitive hit that felt really good and delightful and juicy, and gave thanks when things didn't work out. And there's a lot of things in my life that didn't work out, a lot. And the more that I denied who I was or who I am and gave in to those things that didn't work out, I just suffered. I was prolonging my suffering. And then I finally realized I don't have to suffer. This is crazy. Why am I choosing to do this? And that's when I really started to play my way to change and break all the rules and be who I am. And it felt so good. It was so much easier to stop people pleasing and to listen to that little guy, that little committee up in your head.
They're on the payroll. You don't even want them on the payroll. Okay, so I know that you've given us so much of your time already, but I've got one last question to kind of before we wrap up. You talked about this concept of when you get the hits, right? And to follow, pay attention to that. Can you just describe a little bit for those, again, people that could be completely new to this world or very skeptical or just curious of when you say hits, what do you mean by that? So that people can maybe, have the gift of paying attention a little bit more to those hits in their own life.
Yeah. Well, for one, I do say, and you know what? I love meditation. I think it's amazing. And I shouldn't make fun of it and say, that you don't have to sit there and but you don't. I mean, if you want to, you can, but you don't. But it is important that you're in at least a clear mind space where you're allowing, because the truth is that when you are in despair or you're in, you may get these little angel signs. And I work with the angelic realm, so that's just what I'm going to refer them to, that come up. And it's important to give appreciation for those things so that more of those come in. And then when they come in, and I always tell people, if you are going to reach out to me and ask me, what does this mean? You don't have to know what it means. It just means shut up and stop and listen to yourself. Just know that it's okay, that you're on the right track no matter what. So, and what do those look like? So looking at things like repetitive numbers, or you see shapes in leaves, or, oh my gosh, I was just thinking of that person and then they called, or there's anything synchronistic that happens, that is something, right? It's like that is a tell-all hit into what's happening, whether that is, and again, if you do have to ask yourself, what does this mean? Don't worry about what it means. Just know that you're on the right path. And it's like, if you want to look into it, I'm a big promoter of animal symbolism. I love looking up symbolism for animals, and I think that those can give you a lot of information, numbers, things like that. But at the end of the day, it just means that you're on the right path. It just means, so you have to keep following them. And I think that I don't know if this was recorded when we talked about this, but I definitely go into the hell yes. There's either the hell yes or there's no. There's no in between area. So if you're not feeling super, super delightful, juicy about something, it has to be a no. Even if it's like a yeah, okay, or a those are all things that are no's. It's when you get those super, super juicy hell yes things within you that you can literally feel in your heart, and that you just got to do it, and you don't know why you got to do it. And that may even scare you a little bit. And I always tell people, use fear as your GPS, follow it, go into it. What's the worst that can happen? There's nothing, it's like you're always going to be okay. Just go into it. So it's following those hell yes things, those hell yes hits that come up. And it may be in a meditation. It may be that I always tell people too, if you hear things 3 times or you see things 3 times or if it comes into your mind 3 times, follow it. 3 is like, okay, dummy, let's get going. It's like, stop. I don't need to tell you one more time. And I teach people how to use a pendulum or use their body as a pendulum. And they always second guess themselves. So they'll ask it again or they'll ask it again. It's like, no, just go with it and trust yourself. I have faith. I say faith stands for finding angels in the heart. I have so many acronyms that I make up. So have faith and just keep going. But if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. So it's like if you have all these ideas that are up for you right now, it's like write them all out. And the ones that are not super delicious, it's a no. And then you have to keep going. You have to uncover every stone. I don't care if it's like you overhear at lunch some person mentioning a bookstore and it's like, oh, that's interesting. I was thinking about it. Or somebody, you go to the bookstore. I mean, literally, that's how it looks, and then just wait and see what shows up. And maybe nothing shows up, but maybe it will later. It's like you have to uncover every single stone. That is what that looks like, to follow a divinely guided life and follow your fears. I was scared of flying for years. I almost missed a college graduation trip to Hawaii because I didn't want to fly there. And I was so scared. And so what did I do? I became a flight attendant. It's like follow your fears. And that was amazing because I met all these wonderful people. It eventually pushed me into doing what I'm doing full time. So it's like, I'm not saying like don't go jump in front of a car, like nothing that's that fearful, but things that would be good for you. But it's like, I'm scared to do it. Follow that and just keep going, keep uncovering. Do not stop. You can't stop. You have to keep taking action and keep moving. And that's what that looks like. And I do love meditation to connect. And I have a free meditation on my website for anybody that wants that, to connect with your angel. It's a really lovely one, and it'll give you some messaging for yourself.
I have been jotting down so many notes here of different resources and things that you've shared. So I'll make sure that I link those in the show notes so folks can get a hold of those. And it's so funny. I usually ask people at the end, what's one piece of kind of encouragement or wisdom that you wanted to impart on the audience. And so I want to give that opportunity to you, but I just feel like what you just said was so powerful too, of, following that fear and not trying to find meaning in it all, but just knowing that the meaning is that it's happening. And that's just so powerful. But anything else that, as we kind of wrap up, I want to be conscientious of, your time and things like that too, because Lord knows we could go on for hours. And I'm sure my littles are out the door saying, we want to say hi too. But being able to, anything encouragement or just wisdom that you want to kind of share with, my amazing listeners, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I did. I think that was my big thing, is like that. Yeah, the follow your fear, be your own teacher, break all the rules. And what I always tell people is don't stop, dummy. Just don't stop, no matter what. And it's the dummy is the I'm talking to the itty bitty shitty committee in your head, but it's like, just don't stop. Just keep going and trust yourself, because you are your own best teacher. Do not follow the rules of anything. If something does not feel good to you, don't do it, because you're outputting that and then being a vibrational match for that. Some things are going to work better for other people, and then some things aren't. I really recommend to find out your Chinese element, because it's the ancient art. There is nothing new age about it, but it really helps you to understand what can be overcoming and what can be really supportive for you. So find that out. That's 9-star Chi astrology is what you would refer to. And there's tons of calculators online that you could Google for free. But it helps to understand, if you, for example, if you are Earth, stones are good. Crystals are good. If you're wood, maybe you just need to go hug a tree. It's like those things. It's helping to understand. And again, that may not feel good to you either, and that's okay. But that has changed my life immensely, knowing that I am an earth element. Everything that I do is around that. So that's also one piece of advice that I would give to people. But don't stop. Just keep going. Keep uncovering.
How can people get a hold of you? How can they find your work and follow you? You just do such beautiful things in the world. And I would love for my audience to be able to follow you and just see the gifts and the lightness that you bring. So how can they connect with you?
Thank you. My website is ginanicole.net, and it's not .com. She's a photographer, so ginanicole.net. And there's an Instagram link on my homepage, so you can follow me there. I love Instagram. There's a link to my Facebook page. So any of those, we can connect there. I love stories, especially angel stories. And there's also plenty of resources on my website if you're looking to develop esoterically or learn more about the angelic realm or just share. Just share. It's all good. So yeah, that's where people can find me.
Fantastic. I will link that in the show notes so everybody knows how to find it as well. But I am just, I cannot express just how grateful I am that you took the time today to introduce yourself to my audience, and just these just the way you move about the world is just very inspirational. And I'm excited to know you for so many years, G. You know, we're hitting 30, like 30 something years of knowing each other.
And thank you for doing the work that you're doing. I think that you're a divine inspiration to so many. It's like here you have like so many years of doing therapy, and doing that work, and it's like following that hit and being like, this is the juice. This is so great that you're giving this gift to so many.
It's that, following the fear and saying, I don't know what it's going to be. There is no expectation besides just enjoying the journey of it. So thank you so much. I cannot believe how much fun Gina and I had recording. Clearly, you can tell that we've known each other forever, and just a absolute delight to have her on the show. There's so many things that she offered, so many resources, and I included them all in the show notes, so you'll be able to reference there for all the great information that she gave. And just the one part that I think stands out of, well, so many parts, but the one part that just has been kind of with me since we recorded this interview was this, her grandmother coming to her and saying, I prayed wrong. And I was looking at all the things that I needed rather than the gratitude for what was in front of me. And that just it's been a reminder on my heart these last few days since Gina and I recorded. And I just am so excited to be able to just learn from all of you guys. You guys are amazing inspirations. And I hope all of you know that, because there's so much that I'm getting from doing this podcast, not only in building these relationships with folks, but also being able to get to know you. So I thank you so much for those of you that have hopped over to iTunes and taken the time to leave a review and rate the show. It's just really exciting to hear your guys' feedback. So I really encourage you to do that if you haven't done so. And please keep sending in your voice feedback via the SpeakPipe app, or you can send me an email to anna@herlifeunscripted.com. You are beautiful, beautiful, courageous women, and I'm so blessed to be on this journey with you. Thank you so much for letting me into your world and into your hearts, and I'm just delighted to be knowing all of you and to just really be learning from you. Thank you so much. Until next time. Bye.